You mute yourself, mate, if you're going to die over there. Oh, hello, everybody. Sorry, a few minutes late. We just had to let Andy in. Meeting AI notes decline. See you later. Don't like the AI note takers coming in. Be alive. Do you know what I mean? That's what we say. Right, still people joining. Hello, everybody. Hope you're good. Mike's just on mute because he's boring and no one wants to listen to him, is the main thing. He's finally learned. That's what it is. Yeah, so we have Mike on mute because he's a bit ill, so no one wants to listen to that. And we have Andy with us today, Andy Keeler. Some of you may know him, some of you may not. He's really, really softly spoken, like always, make sure everyone feels really welcomed in everything he does. And he does anyway, in general. But anyone knows Andy will know that he does not beat around the bush whatsoever. And he's going to talk to you today a little bit about psychology of coaching, the way you need to start approaching your coaching, the way you need to start thinking about coaching, and everything else in between, I imagine. He's a very smart dude. I think that's probably it. I don't think we need to mention anything else, do we, mate? Drives a nice car, he's got a great hairstyle. I mean, it goes on and on, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? Right, I will hit record and then I'll give you the floor, mate. And any questions, put them in the chat. I'll try and relay them to Andy, but I also don't want to interrupt him when he's off on one because it's quite entertaining to listen to, I imagine. And we can then dive into the questions either near the end, or if we have little pauses where Andy feels a good time to break, we'll ask the questions then. He'll plug his Instagram, I'm sure, as we go through. I'm sure someone in the chat will give him loads of shit. And we'll be all good. I thought those were cat ears for a second. Yeah, they do look like cat ears. Yeah. Just a little filter you've got going on there.
Yeah, it's the Alien and the Predator. Hand-drawn.
It's not. It's cat ears. Is what it is now. We've established.
Yeah, I'm actually, in secret, I'm a furry, mate.
Yeah. Right. I will hit record.
Recording in progress.
And Andy, you have the floor. I will let you share your screen. I'm sure you have stuff to share with everyone. But yes.
Thank you very much,
Andrew
sir.
Keeler.
Yeah, so the reason that I'm here is to talk about the psychology of coaching, because of all of the coaches that I've worked with over the last, 5 or 6 years, that has been the biggest failing for a lot of them. Like, I don't know any of you, really. I know Colin, unfortunately. But I've worked with coaches whose applicable knowledge for coaching, programming, nutrition, supplementation, hormones, peptides, etc., has been exceptionally high, and their business has still been shit. And one of the things that I'm really trying to impress upon people, coaches now, is the fact that if any of you have got any kind of inclination or fear that AI is going to replace you or could replace you or is going to replace online coaches, then what I'm going to talk about is the thing that you need to focus on. Because the fundamental psychology of coaching is the very thing that AI cannot replace, because it's the human element of coaching. You could be the world's leading authority on coaching programming. You could understand how to put together the most quote-unquote perfect diet for a client based off the goal that they tell you that they've got. But neither of those things is going to have even the remotest impact on a client's adherence. And as any of you that are worth your salt as a coach will know, adherence trumps the training program. It trumps the diet. It trumps everything else. And that is where actual coaching comes into play. If a client could, in fact, just as a simple exercise to make sure everybody's switched on, how many of you have had, with a show of hands, clients say to you that they've had an issue with the diet and then you've needed to make a change to the diet, and then you've made that change and in really short period of time there's a new problem with the diet, and then you've made that change and then there's been another problem with the diet, or same thing but with the training program? How many of you have experienced that at some point? Yeah. Now, that at no point was a problem with the diet or with the training program. It was a problem with something else. And everything that I do now is to teach coaches to try to understand how to understand what your client is actually saying when they're not saying it. Because most people don't communicate in a direct manner. As Dan was alluding to at the start then, I'm somewhat direct, blunt. Some people might even say, Dan, what do you think?
Potentially, mate, yeah. But nothing wrong with that.
No, because I promote that to every single one of you, regardless of the type of clientele that you look after. You should communicate directly, because you only work with fucking adults. And if any of you have ever gone to send a message to a client, or there is a message, a voice note, a conversation that you want to send or need to have with a client, but you're hesitant to do so because you're scared of the way that they're going to respond to it, the way that they're going to receive it. So you try to think of the softer way to deliver it. How can I deliver this message to this client so that they won't be upset and then they won't leave the service? If that's the kind of trap that you find yourself in on either a regular basis or a semi-regular basis, you've got work to do with regards to the way that you approach coaching. Because at the moment, if that's the sort of thing that you worry about with the client, you're doing it wrong and you're focusing on the wrong things. Because for me, if I'm working with a grown adult who's come to me and is paying me money to get them a result, and I need to be honest with them and tell them about themselves and give them information that they might not like, but if they listen to and then change, they are going to get the results that they're seeking. If I can't be honest with that person, then they will leave the service. I don't worry about them having a fit about it and choosing to leave. If I can't have open discourse with the client, I will fire them, because I don't coach children, I coach adults. But there's a lot of people these days, and it is absolutely getting worse. The more and more content and access people have had to mental health awareness, etc., the softer people are becoming, to the point where you've got hordes of adults now who want all of the benefits of being an adult, but they want to maintain the advantage of being able to abdicate responsibility, which is what children do. You know, if a kid does something and they fuck up, any of you who've got children, when your kid does something, when they're below a certain age at least, you go, oh, well, they're only a kid, they didn't know any better. You know, they're learning, they're growing. For me, there's nothing worse than an adult that tries to maintain that. Because this is something that I've come across a lot. Dan didn't say anything about this at the start. I've been coaching for 22 years now. I know you're probably looking at me thinking, but you look way too young to have been coaching for that long. Shut up, Mike. Shaking your head. Nobody cares what you think. And over the years, I would get people who would come to me, and when they've not done something, they've either just not executed on the thing that was supposed to have been done at all, or they've done it wrong. And when I've called them on it, they try to placate me by saying, oh, I didn't understand. I didn't know how to do that. Oh, I didn't realise that I should have done it like that. Oh, I've never done this before, so I didn't know. Have any of you ever experienced that? See some of you nodding. That is an adult trying to infantilize themselves. They're trying to take the position of a child so that you will go, oh, it's okay, and let them off. And you can't. That's the sort of thing that you should, in the moment, call out, because I promise you fucking faithfully, that is the reason that they're in the position that they're in the first place. That will be part of the reason why they're in the position that they're in. You know, if they've tried dieting over and over and over again, if they've tried training over and over and over again, and they've failed every time, they've tried this diet, that diet, the other diet, the diet ain't the fucking issue. The gym that they go to, or the style of training, isn't the issue. The issue is them. It's something psychological within them, emotionally driven, that you need to figure out so that you can be the person that actually gets them the results that they are seeking. And eventually, you will be that person for those people. It's like, why do you think so many coaches go to so many different mentors and get fuck all from them? And then they come to Dan and Mike and all of a sudden they're making great progress. What do you think it is that Dan and Mike do that other mentors don't do?
Be nice in the comments. Don't go too fucking crazy.
Say it how it is. What else? Mike looks like he's giving head. I don't think that's why he's successful, but it could be. actually talking, actually dealing with them, being honest, straight to the point. So, if Dan bullies me, maybe you deserve it, right? I don't know you.
Yeah, that's just about his golf, though. It's fine.
No, that's all right then.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's loads of suggestions here, and there's elements of it that are correct. But ultimately, the reason why Dan and Mike are better than the other mentors in the space is because they coach you. They coach the individual. They don't coach your business. They don't try to coach your audience. They coach you. They speak to you. They find out what your fears are. They find out where you're going wrong. What's going on behind the scenes in your life. They address those issues. And then all of a sudden the things that you do start to work. But it's because once you're more aligned in here, everything that comes out of here is more aligned as well. Because you can see the shift. Now that you're aware of it, for some of you, you would be able to do it with your own content, but it'd be fun for you to do it with some of the other people in the group. Go onto their Instagram, scroll back to the point before they were working with Dan and Mike and just listen to a video. Listen to the pattern of the way that they speak. Listen to the level of conviction that they speak with or didn't speak with. And then go to now when you're getting much, much better results. I can guarantee that the message is far more consistent. It's much more aligned. You speak with far more conviction. You actually sound like you know what you're fucking talking about. Like, how many of you experienced imposter syndrome quite a lot before you started working with Dan or Mike, whoever it is that you're working with, or before you started absorbing the content? How many of you still suffer with it as bad as you did before? Let me open the comments because it's flying through. Right, so
I think that's the one thing I think with content for sure. So like one of the big things that me and Mike talk about a lot is showing up in content, and one of the things I'll hammer home all the time is, what are you passionate about? We always ask people all the time, what are you passionate about? What do you care about? What do you actually want to help people for? Because so many coaches just think that they need to post nutrition and training advice. And as you've just alluded to there, often with a client coming to you with a problem, it's not their training or diet that's the problem. It's like, say, it's themselves. It's the fact that they aren't in a position to actually commit or do this sort of stuff. Exactly the same with coaches when it comes to content. When you start saying to a coach, right, what are you passionate about? What do you believe in? What do you know shitloads about? And what you're really confident saying, say that. Say that and talk about that, because that's the stuff that you'll never struggle for content ideas. You'll never struggle with what you want to say each day. You'll never struggle with making a video on that day, because you're passionate about something, because you care about it. And we have to have this conversation about likes and views all the time. We're just like, it doesn't fucking matter, because everyone that's looking for the likes and views, it's always just that nice bit of content that's just like a recipe. It's just nice. It doesn't do anything there. It doesn't change anyone's opinion of you. It doesn't change anyone's opinion of what themselves and what they need to do. It's just that sort of it's just that doom scroll, just brain rot. Just, they feel like they're doing something because they've saved a recipe reel. Because it's easier to do that than it is to actually go, actually, I'm a bit shit at this. Actually, I really need to look inwardly and start doing this work. It's the same with coaches with content. It's exactly the same thing. Like, we have these conversations, and like I just said there, it can take weeks or it can take months to just come back to the same point of going, yeah, but what do you actually believe? I've had it before with coaches. Sometimes in a week they get it. Sometimes some of them it takes 3 months.
Yeah.
And they just go, oh, finally, I get what you mean now. Like, penny's dropped. So yeah, it's just mad. Like, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, no, it is, because that's the other side of it as well. If you only ever talk about the things that you are absolutely fucking sure about, all your imposter syndrome will go away. Because as I've told more coaches than I can remember, when you're experiencing imposter syndrome, for 99% of you, it's not imposter syndrome. You're being an imposter. So it's not imposter syndrome. You are just being an imposter. You're being a liar, and you're talking about things and taking on clients that you shouldn't. You're talking about things that you don't know enough about. Like, if you go onto my Instagram, you will only ever see me talk. And I've had, God knows how many people say to me over the years, I want to be able to talk like you do to the camera. How do you talk so fluid? I was like, well, first of all, I've been doing it since like 2010. So I've been doing it a fucking long time. But the other side of it is, if I don't know a shitload about the thing, you will not see me produce content about it. So if you can see content of me talking about a certain thing, you can guarantee that I know that subject to its fucking core. So I have no fear of somebody trying to challenge me on it or asking me a question about it or anything else, because I know everything that I need to know about it to be able to rise to a challenge or to be able to have a conversation with someone about it in a public forum. Really simple rule that you can follow for producing content is, if you couldn't speak about it openly and freely on a podcast, do not talk about it in content. Because if you need a script, if you need a teleprompter, if you need sticky notes around your fucking screen, if you need something so that you can turn and reference it as you're speaking about it, or if you need to read up and refresh your mind before you record the reel, you don't know enough about it and you shouldn't be producing that reel. It's as simple as that. Because one of the things that ends up coming from that, if you do that, you do it consistently, and you actually get good enough at convincing people that you know what you're talking about, is you end up attracting people who need help with that thing. That's when you're really fucked, because now you've got somebody that needs you to know a lot about that thing and you don't. So you find yourself constantly being asked questions by someone who you can't help because you don't know enough. And that's part of the issue for a lot of coaches. A lot of coaches phone it in because they obsess over training. They obsess over nutrition. Or, as everybody's doing, wanking themselves off these days, over fucking peptides. Right? It's irrelevant bullshit, most of it. For me, I would love to see coaches dedicate probably 75-80% of your time that is spent on your education learning about psychology, learning how to understand influence and the difference between influence and persuasion, the difference between emotional empathy and intellectual empathy, understanding just how detrimental, damaging sympathy is when you deliver that to a client. And it's not only damaging to the client, but it's damaging to your business as well. And most coaches that I speak to, whether it's in casual in DMs or when people first join the community for the psychology of coaching, or whether it's someone who I'm working with directly, when I ask them what is the difference between emotional empathy and intellectual empathy, I am met with a blank face. And then I ask them which they think they use, and they always want to lean towards intellectual empathy because they believe that because they study coaching programming and blah, blah, blah a lot, that they are therefore an intellectual. And almost none of them have ever been able to display any kind of intellectual empathy for me. So to that point, of the people here, who understands the difference between the two? Do you know the difference between emotional empathy and intellectual empathy, and how and when to use it?
Not a good guess.
Go on.
Would be a guess though.
You're getting points for guessing.
Office quote. I'm guessing that intellectual empathy is where you're able to make a detached decision, right? Where your emotions are not getting involved in terms of how the feeling of it influences yourself in terms of that decision making process. I'm guessing that emotional empathy is where you actually take on board the feelings of the person and put yourself in that position, as opposed to looking at it from an outsider's perspective, something along those lines. I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's like, and enmeshment is a really serious issue for a lot of coaches. And for anybody that isn't aware of what that is, the simplest way to describe it is enmeshment is just this. Like, one of the categorically worst things that you can do as a coach to your client and to yourself is become part of their emotional profile and their emotional network. Because the instability that creates in your relationship with them is enormous. You end up walking on ice with them. Because if you have repeatedly supported the emotion that they're experiencing, that they've then used to justify whatever bullshit they've pulled, which is why they've not followed the diet, they've not, whatever it is that they should have done, they've not done it. And there's always an emotional reason for it and a justification. If you're the type of coach that when your client falls in a hole, you jump into it with them and you give them a cuddle and you tell them that everything's going to be okay and to not worry about it and don't feel guilty, don't be embarrassed, there's no shame and blah, 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 all that fucking soft bullshit that people love promoting these days. Creating a safe space for people. But in that safe space, it's just you fabricating this environment where every emotion and feeling that they've got is absolutely correct because it's their truth. That is essentially what you're doing. Now, if they've fallen in a hole and you jump in there with them, who's helping who? An emotionally empathetic coach is going to do that. They're going to jump in the hole with the client once they've fallen in. An intellectually empathetic coach would walk up to the hole, slide a ladder into it and go, you fell in a fucking hole, mate, aren't you? That's bad. Right, climb up the ladder and then we can talk about how to not fall in that same hole again. And essentially, that's the easiest way that I can deliver it to you. Because for a lot of you, it's been like baked into you through content exposure, through practicing with clients. When you've got a client who's a bit soft, you know, and they come at you and they, oh, the kids and this has happened and that's happened and the other thing's happened and blah, blah, blah. And they may be really sensitive. Maybe you've experienced ghosting from that client before when you've tried to call them out on something. But all you're doing there is you're supporting the pattern of behavior that ensures that that's going to carry on, because you've taught that client that with you, they can get away with anything if they just put their emotions at the forefront, because you're weak and you're going to accept it because you don't want to upset them. Whereas an intellectually empathetic coach, somebody such as myself, it doesn't matter what my clients have been doing. I've been on live calls with clients one-on-one and they've been sobbing their eyes out about something. Given the nature of the work that I do, it's very different than just training in nutrition. I deal with like really serious life stuff with people. And I've had clients that have been sobbing their eyes out and I've just been sat waiting. And after about 5 minutes, I would just go, how much of the call are you going to waste doing this? And like that, their emotion stops. And it's because they weren't expecting it. It's like a slap in the face. Like, but well, am I not allowed to be upset? It's like, yeah, be upset, but let's carry on. Because my role in your life is to ensure that this stops happening, to fix the thing that causes this to happen in the first place. And if I was to sit there and talk them through it and tell them that everything's going to be okay and stroke the face with a feather and make them feel all special, I'm not doing that. And as a coach, you should absolutely detest people that do that. It should piss you off that there's coaches out there that just support the emotional profile of their client as they are when they come to them. Because if you do that, you're not leading them anywhere. You're walking them in a circle. Ew. Kane coming in with a valuable addition to the conversation.
I think as well, like I think that this is one thing about coaching that I think is like the experience side of stuff is so important, because you tend to learn this, like you said about having 22 years experience. It's no surprise to me that the people who coach for longer tend to recognize this in their clients and tend to recognize this in people. It's like, and I think it's because you made the mistake of trying it the nice way. You made the mistake of trying it a nice way, and people don't really change or get anywhere, and then you lose the client anyway. So you go, well, you might as well have said what you really think. You might as well have said what was actually going to help them in that situation. And I think that's why a lot of people early on in their career, definitely, they struggle with this concept of like, oh, but I might lose a client and I might do this. And what you've just described and gone through there is that, well, you're going to lose them anyway because you're just letting them just keep reinforcing that, oh, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. No, it's not going to be okay probably if you carry on doing this. But I'm sure we've all been in that position before. We had a client where we're like, I just really want to help them. And you think that, like you said, by doing that, you're going to help them. And I think it's just through the years of experience of doing that and recognizing that, you know, you can't just keep doing the same thing. You can't just keep saying, oh, everything's going to be okay. Again, coaches will be happy to say in content, oh, you know, it's insanity doing the same thing, expect something different. I'm like, well, that's what they do with their clients. That's what they do with their responses to those issues and those problems. Yeah. So it's just interesting that, like you say, is for me, it's those coaches that tend to be the most experienced, who've gone through more years of coaching, tend to recognize this and recognize it as one of the key things that they've done. Like when people say to me, like, oh, like you said about being blunt and to the point in our content, I just kind of go like, what else do you want me to do? I always feel like, I go, what other way is there? Like, to me, anyway, just because I'm like, well, I know what works and I know what we're doing here. And the longer people take to fanny about, you're just wasting time. You're just wasting 2 years until you actually have to fix the problem and do what I said anyway. You might as well just do it now. There's a little bit of that sometimes. And again, people use that word again, go blunt. And I kind of, you know, you just said there, it's almost like that metaphorical slap in the face of going, well, no, I'm just telling you the truth. Like, when you were ready to hear it. I mean, I've had people reach out to me before, going, "I followed you a year and a half, 2 years ago, and just thought thought you a bit of a knob, and now I'm followed you and I don't want to work with you again." I'm like, "Yeah, because it hurt, didn't it?" Like, yeah. And you weren't in the place to listen to it, were you? No, I wasn't. Right.
Yeah.
Let's crack on then. Like, sometimes that's what you get with people. I try to explain this to coaches all the time about posting content and getting unfollows or unsubscribes. Good. They weren't ready to hear it. They weren't ready to be part of your ecosystem. They weren't going to be a good client, like, because if they can't handle you posting a reel where you're a bit to the point and blunt, they can't handle you doing it on a weekly video, like, to them and tell them that they need to sort their shit out effectively, like in a roundabout way. Again, however we dress it up, that's kind of what we're trying to get people to do every single week, is get a little bit closer to just sorting their shit out step by step. And I think that's why sometimes me and Mike might get a little bit heated in these calls, where we kind of can't get a head around why coaches don't just want to post what they really think or feel, or won't just do it and won't just say that. Because I'm kind of like, you're going to have to at some point. You might as well do it now. If it takes you a year, it takes you a year, but you're going to come back to exactly the same point that we just described, and you're going to do it then. So you might as well just stop wasting that year. And that's why I think on these calls, like, we just often end up saying the same sorts of things, or going on the same sort of rants and get passionate about it, is because it's right. And when you listen to it, and do it, that's when all the good shit happens. I call it the cunt-sieve. Yeah. I mean, that's a fruitful way of saying it, correct? But but again, I personally just don't see any other way. I think it's something that needs to be addressed within the coaching space. Like you said, there's just a lot of people out there who would rather get followers than clients. And what we're talking about is a way to get and keep clients, to get results. And, again, each coach is going to have their own individual way of doing it. But I think as coaches, we can all look back at times where we've had that client where we just needed to actually be a little bit firmer. I don't think with many clients we actually ever need to be softer. I don't think I can look back on many mistakes I've made with a client where I've gone, oh, maybe it was a bit hard there and I should have gone softer on them. I go, no, I told the truth and they weren't ready to hear it. Well, that's part of it sometimes. That's just the way it rolls. Yeah. Like I say, and that's the battle that coaches always have, and they just always go far too far to I'll just stay on the soft side because it's easier and it's not as conflicting and I don't feel as bad. And then that client leaves in 2 months anyway, and you're like, well.
Yeah, and the funniest thing about that is that you get coaches that will do that, and they will be soft. They will be soft in content. They will be soft in DMs, and then they complain that they get weak clients who want to leave after a month or two. It's like, well, what the fuck did you expect? You're speaking to people and treating them like they're a fucking Fabergé egg, and then when they come in and they can't be pressure tested in any way, shape, or form, you act surprised. Like, that's you being a fucking idiot. When I have clients that say to me, oh, but if I'm like that, will it not put people off? I'm like, yes, it will put the soft people off. That's the point. One of the reasons why most coaches don't produce the content that they should be producing is because you are unsure of who you are. Your identity is the most important thing, bar none. Because you're uncertain of who you are, you fall victim to the same thing that a lot of your clients fall victim to. So when I teach people about identity, most people think you've got your identity and it's me, it's who I am. So like, Andy, this is who I am. Tristan, this is who I am. Jenna, this is who I am. And you think that it's just a single unit, but we're not. We're like Russian dolls. Like, you take the top off one, and there's another one inside, and you take the top off that, and there's another one. Like, the reality of it is we have 4 identities that function at the same time all the time. You've got your surface identity, which is the version of you that you present to the world. That is the version of you that you want to be perceived as. That's how you want to be known. It's how you want to be spoken as. It's how you want people to receive you, right? And then behind that, you've got your lived identity. That's the person that you actually live as day to day. That's your actions, it's your behaviours, it's the patterns, it's your thoughts, your feelings, etc. But it's the real version of you. Not the bullshit that you present to everybody, the real you, okay? The bigger the disparity between those two things, the more work you have to do to get yourself aligned, because the distance between your surface identity and your lived identity should be like a layer of paint. They should be the same thing. I've met people in person, and it always seems a weird thing, even though I've had it said to me so many times. They go, you're exactly the same in person as you are on social media. I'm like, yeah. Because who the fucking hell else am I supposed to be? But the people say that because they're so familiar with meeting someone in person, and they are a light year apart in persona, in demeanour, from how they present themselves on social media. Now, if there is a disparity for you between those two things, the way that you talk about yourself, the things that you tell people that you do, what your daily schedule's like, how hard you're working, etc., first of all, you're just being a liar. And if you're lying, you're a coward. And if you're struggling with imposter syndrome, you're struggling to put yourself forward, you're struggling to make content, you're struggling to speak to people with authority, that's why. I, for the longest time, always said two of the most important things to me are honesty and integrity. I'm always honest, regardless of the situation that I'm in. Because if you're going to lie, you're either scared of the person you're talking to, or you're scared of the consequences of the truth. And in both of those scenarios, you're being a fucking coward. And if you're a grown adult, you need to grow up. You need to get over that. Because people say, oh, but I don't want to offend someone. Who fucking cares? It's social media. You've not asked them to be there. If they don't like what you say, they can leave. Like, I swear a lot when I speak. I swear a lot in content. I've had people over the years message me and say, I'd like your content more if you didn't swear as much. And I've always just replied to them, fuck off. Like, this is who I am. If you don't like me swearing, then that's a part of me that you don't like. And I don't give a fuck, because I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to appeal to you as a person. I'm here to appeal to people that see me and go, I fucking like him. I have other coaches, clients come to me and ask me for advice, and they always preface it with, I'm asking you because I know for a fact that you will tell me the truth. So what does that tell you? They aren't going to their coach or mentor because they don't feel that their coach or mentor tells them the truth. Because they know clients get to a point where they realize that you won't be honest with them because you're scared. Which means that another grown adult has got you by the balls, or the tits respectively, for a monthly payment of maybe 150, 200 fucking quid. Like, can any of you look me in the face and tell me that you respect yourself if you let somebody else dictate the way that you communicate with them because of a little bit of money? Because I've had clients who pay me a lot of money. A lot. Like, I think the coaching average at the moment is what, £150 a month, Dan?
Yeah, about that. Maybe a tad higher, but yeah, around there.
And for one of my services, it's £1,500 a month. And I had one of those clients, he was the CEO of a large global firm, and I absolutely put him in his place one day on a call. I guarantee he hasn't been spoken to like that by anybody for a long time, because he is the top dog of a firm that does 9 figures. And do you know what he did? He sat back in his chair. We sat in silence for about 4 minutes, because there's absolutely no way in hell that I'm going to be the one that speaks first. He sat forward and he went, I really respect you for that. That was me earning his respect, which I don't need because I respect myself. But from that point on, coaching him became a fucking doddle. Because 2 things happened. One, I respected him and he respected me. That was the mutual understanding. I spoke to him with absolute honesty because I respected him as an adult. I respected him as the man that he was. If I'd spoken to him softly and if I'd tried to deliver a difficult truth in a soft package, I might as well just go, right, you're mentally inept as an adult, so I'm going to try and deliver this to you like you're a fucking child. That to me is really disrespectful. If somebody did that to me, it'd probably be the last time that I spoke to him. If I was in somebody's service that I was paying for and they did that to me, it would 100% be the last time they'd hear from me. And some of you will do that with your clients on a regular basis. And it's impossible to create psychological safety for a client, which is creating an environment between you and them where they feel so safe psychologically that there's nothing that they won't tell you. Where if you ever get a client that ghosts and goes rogue and things like that, they don't feel psychologically safe with you as a coach. And if you have not pinned yourself in their life as an authority and a leader, that's why. You know, like, I don't know who it was who introduced it into the fucking coaching industry, but I'd love to slap them in the throat for it. All of this we thing. You know, coaching's not a dictatorship. It's not, but it's really fucking close to one. But it's all of this, we make the decisions. It's not a dictatorship. I'm not just going to tell you what to do. You're supposed to. Like, imagine you were lost in the wilderness, right? You're in the middle of a huge wooded area. You don't have a fucking clue where you are. And there's two people in the group. One of them steps to the side and goes, right, everyone, if we walk down this embankment here to the river and walk 3 miles east, cross the river, and then go up that hill that you can see over there, in 2 miles, if we walk forwards, we're going to meet a town. There's a small town up there. Right? That's one of your options. You've got another guy who goes, I think if we go over this hill, I think there's a steep slope, and then if we keep going in that direction, that I think we'll be able to find somewhere where we'll be able to speak to someone. What do you guys think? Who do you want to follow? Which one of those two people are you going to go, I'm going to go with him? Because one of them's going to get you to that small town that he's absolutely certain is there, and the other one, you're going to die in the woods with him. So think about which of those people you want to represent to your clients as a coach. And then think back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier in the call. If you're uncertain of the answers to the questions that your clients are going to ask you about the thing that they need help with because of the content that you've been producing that you shouldn't, you are never going to be the first guy. You're never going to be able to say, we go down here, walk in this direction, cross that river, up that hill, and then 2 miles later we've met a town. You can't get them to where they need to go because you've lied yourself into the position anyway, which is why your insecurities as a coach prevent you from doing the things that you could do. Like, without being that direct about it, that's what Dan and Mike do for you guys by telling you to stick to what you're passionate about. Because if you're passionate about it, chances are you have naturally studied it more. You know more about it because you care more about it. They're trying to guide you as a person to speak about the thing that you automatically know the most about, because that means that that's what people are going to connect with you over. Therefore, when the person who's seen that same content that you've been lather, rinse and repeating, and they finally see enough of you talking about the thing that they need, and then they reach out to you, when they come into your service, their level of knowledge of that thing is this big, and yours is this big. You never run out of answers for them. Like, how many of you try to create new content all the time? How many of you said, I don't know what content to create, or I'm running out of content to make? How many of you have said that or still say that?
Any of them but no are lying as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that just in case. I used to, but I don't do that anymore.
Just throw them all under the bus. Yeah.
Because honestly, that I think for me, one of the funniest things about that is it's the fucking ego of it. It's like, well, I don't want to keep posting the same thing all the time. Yeah, because everybody who follows you and everybody who isn't following you sees every piece of content that you post, every time you post it, and remembers everything. You could literally pick 2 or 3 subjects. In fact, you should do this. 2 or 3 topics and only ever talk about those things. And in 2-3 weeks' time, reproduce the exact same video that you produced a couple of weeks ago. And the amount of people that will message you and go, have you already made this video once? Have you already made this video before? Will A, be a tiny number, and B, it's completely irrelevant. Because even if somebody sees the first video, and then they see the second iteration of it, and then they see the third iteration of it, there might be something in that third version that just hits them a little bit harder. And that's the video that they watch, and then they go, oh, fuck this, I need to message her. And then all of a sudden you get that message that you're seeking. Because people need to be reminded more than they need to be taught. How many of you have only ever had to have a conversation with a client once? They ask you a question about something or they fuck up on something and you tell them once and they go, oh, right, remembered that. And you go, oh, good, I've never had to repeat myself to a client ever. It doesn't fucking happen. because people need to be reminded more than they need to be taught. The first time you tell them is you taught them something, and then every time after that you remind them. And like Dan was saying earlier in the call, sometimes it could take a week, sometimes it could take 3 months. Sometimes people are a bit retarded and it can take a year, but eventually everybody gets there. But it's even with things like setting expectations. Somebody mentioned that earlier when I asked what Dana might do differently. Setting goals. That's a big one that a lot of coaches like to say that they do with the clients. And you wouldn't believe how shit most coaches are at setting goals with clients. What's this one? I accidentally made almost exactly the same piece of content 3 weeks apart. If I can't remember making it, I'm sure they don't remember watching it. Exactly. Absolutely on point. What the fuck was I saying then before Emmeline just completely interrupted me really rudely? What was I saying then, Dan? Were you paying attention? Was anybody paying attention?
I can't remember, because I was gonna talk about
Goal
the
setting.
same. I was gonna talk about the same thing about content and saying how, just to go off on a little one, is that when people come in, we just sort of say, look, pick 15 points, repeat them over and over again for a year. You'll be known for those things. They all relate to somebody, like you said, 2 or 3 topics, and probably even within that is like, we say the same thing over and over again. Like, how many times do we talk about cold DMs? And it's just like, yeah, cold DMs is what we talk about all the time because people still do it. But we still talk about it to this day, even though all of you lot already know it. Yeah, but I still get messages now going, so what do you do instead? And I'm just sat here going, fucking, I've been talking about this for 3 years, 4 years now. Like, same thing over and over again. Like, it just needs to be that way.
The thing that blows my mind is that some of you will have like fat loss coach in your bio, and I could click onto your profile now and watch any number of videos. I could say I'm going to watch 5 back to back. One will be about fat loss, one will be about hypertrophy, one will be about strength training, one will be about some other bullshit, and another one will be about something else that's got fuck all to do with fat loss. If you walked into a university and walked into a psychology professor's room and sat down and stayed for 20 lectures, you'd listen to 20 lectures about psychology because they're an expert in psychology. So why are you guys pinning yourselves as an expert in something and then talking about every other fucking thing but that? Oh, I'm a fat loss expert. This is how I make my oats. Nobody cares. Nobody needs a recipe. Show people bits about your life, absolutely, but don't keep going off piste. Pick the thing that you're going to talk about and stick to it. If you want to be known as being an expert coach for that thing, just talk about that thing. And anyway, back to goal setting. How many of you have had clients come to you and say, what's the goal? And they say, I want to lose weight. And then you go, right, how much? And they have a specific number. They want to lose 20 kilos. What most fitness coaches do at that point is to go, right, yeah, sick. We can definitely do that. This is what we'll do. And you start working all your fucking magic, telling them what you're going to do and the training and the timeline and the this and the that, and the other person goes, oh, amazing. But the thing is that fat loss and losing 20 kilos isn't the goal. They don't give a shit about it. Because at that point, say you get them into your service, and within 4 weeks, they're already starting to fade. They're really starting to struggle. You get to 5 weeks, 6 weeks, they want to lose 20 kilos, they've lost 4, and they want to quit. How do you anchor that client into your business when they're 20% of the way through the total amount of weight that they need to lose and they already want to quit? What would you say to them? Oh, come on, don't quit yet. You've got another 16 kilos to lose yet. Oh, that sounds exciting. Brilliant. So this process that I'm going through, which has been fucking horrific so far and I've found really difficult, I get to do it again for fucking way longer. And they, well, I'm not going anywhere then. It doesn't, exactly. John just said, ask why it's important. So the way that I deliver it to people is I say, what is going to change in your life when you achieve that goal? Because that is fundamentally what they want. There is something in their life that they want to change. So somebody comes to you with a weight loss goal, they don't want to lose weight. They just understand that that is the vehicle that they're probably going to be able to reach the real goal. Because I had a woman many moons ago when I was still a fitness coach, I had a woman come to me. What do you want? Weight loss. How much? 3 stone. And I just said, right, okay, why? What do you mean? I said, why 3 stone? Why not 2.5 stone? Why not 4 stone? Why 3 stone? What changes in your life when you lose 3 stone? I'll feel better about myself. It's like, right, okay. And what changes in your life when you feel better about yourself? I'll be more confident. And when you're more confident, what changes? But I'll be able to wear the clothes that I want to wear and go and shop in the shops that I can't shop in at the moment. Okay, and what changes in your life when you can shop in the shops that you want to and wear the clothes that you want to? But I'll feel even better about myself, right? And what changes in your life when you feel even better about yourself? And yeah, it feels like a fucking interrogation for him, but it's really important. So I pushed her through it. I was just like, what changes when you feel even better about yourself? I'll be more outgoing. I was like, okay. And what difference is that going to make to the way that your life runs day to day? I'll be able to speak to people easier. So, okay. And what changes then? Why is it that you want to be able to speak to people easier? Is it just a general thing, or is there somebody specific that you want to be able to speak to? It's a guy from work. I was like, right, okay. What about him? She was like, I've been in love with him for 2 years and I've still not even introduced myself. And if I look better and I feel better and I'm wearing the clothes that I like and I feel good, I feel like I'll have the confidence to go and speak to him. I was like, right, brilliant. So you go and speak to him. What changes in your life when you do that? She was just like, well, hopefully, we'll start dating and, I'll end up in a relationship with him. Said, and what changes in your life when that happens? She said, I won't be lonely anymore. And I was like, that's the goal. I was like, you don't want to be lonely anymore, do you? And then she started crying and I was like, all right. I was like, yeah, I get it. It's all sad, whatever. I was just like, let's just stay focused on what we actually need to focus on. And then that was it. So she needed to lose 3 stone, which, as you all probably know, whatever somebody thinks they need to lose, you can normally add at least another 20-30% onto it. Started the process. She got about, I think she was about 7 or 8 kilos in. Wanted to quit, this, that, and the other. I was just like, it's one of those, you're a grown woman, you can do what you want. If you want to quit, you can stop. Like, because I'm assuming that you already feel better, you're more confident, like you're more outgoing, you've already started speaking to that guy, you've got a date set up, and you're not lonely anymore, are you? And she just sat there. And again, I didn't say anything. I just sat there and waited for her. And she just went, I see your point. And I was just like, so you're leaving then? Am I cancelling your payment? She was like, no. I was like, right, okay. And then said, what's the actual problem? And it was, I'm finding it really difficult. And I went, do you know why? Why? I was like, because it's fucking difficult. Well done. Welcome to dieting and losing a lot of weight. I was just like, some of it's shit. I was like, but the end goal is worth it. Just think about that, and on and on and on. But intellectual empathy, there was no, oh, I know it's so difficult and, people don't understand and blah, 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 and seeing your body chip. She didn't need that from me. All that would have done, that would have amplified whatever feelings she had that to her validated leaving the situation. But I approached it with how I normally would. I understand where you're coming from. And I know that you're finding it difficult. I can see it in your behaviour. But here's something else that I do know. If you stop now, all the good work that you've done so far, the progress that you've made, that will all go. And any progress that you have made mentally and emotionally will be rewound. But you will go backwards further than when you started. You will feel worse about yourself. And you will probably gain more weight than you had when we first started. And if I let you do that, I failed you as a coach. And I don't fail as a coach. It's not what I do. Right, so we need to communicate more. And when you're feeling shit, you need to reach out to me. I was like, but it's not so I can hold your hand. I'm going to talk you through the problem that you've got. And then you're going to carry on. Because you're going to commit to this process, aren't you? Like, it's, if you can deliver that type of empathy with conviction, with no hesitation, the difference in the way that your clients respond to you is fucking unbelievable. They turn into different people. Because to go back to what I was saying about identity, you've got your surface identity, lived identity, and then you've got your defensive identity. So when you start speaking to a client and you manage to see through the bullshit that they present to you, because I'm really focused, I really want it, I'm determined, I'm committed, but then their lived identity is misses a check-in, misses a session, misses the steps at least 2-3 days a week, can't drink water. Oh, I really struggle drinking water. Fucking grow up, mate. Try that. That'll help. There's all of these different things. And when you go, but you're not committed because there's this, and this reason. And they then get defensive. That's their defensive identity, trying to protect their lived identity from exposure. And behind the defensive is the core identity. And that is the fundamental of who they've been since they were a child. Because there's two different ways that your identity changes. You've got your continuity identity, which is what starts to form when you are little. All of your belief systems and your core values on family, relationships, finances, society, things like that, religion, politics, that all gets imposed upon you by your parents when you're little and you don't know enough and you're not old enough to be able to ask questions, to be able to disagree or anything else. As you get a little bit older, you go to school and then you've got teachers and they add to that identity. And then you get a little bit older, it's a new school, new teachers, and they add some more in. Like for a lot of what I do, I've often referred to it as being an optician to the mind. Because every different belief that somebody else has given you since you were a little kid has been another lens in your prescription that has never been tested to see whether it's right for you or not. And then eventually you get out of high school, go to college, maybe university, you've got all these people, you've got colleagues, you've got bosses, you've got parents, you've got partners, their parents. All of these people that have been stacking these fucking beliefs in your prescription your entire life. And eventually you get to a point and you don't see yourself or the world or anything else the way that you should. And then people like me come along and I just start ripping everything out. And then we go along and we actually put lenses in your prescription that actually belong there so that you can see yourself accurately, so that you can see the world accurate, so that you can present yourself the way that you actually want to be perceived. And then the other identity that you've got is your day-to-day identity. And the way that you act is one of the most important things. Because you've got how you actually live, lived identity, and what you tell people you do, surface identity. You see people and like, yeah, I get up at 5 a.m. every day, I do a cold plunge, I show my arsehole to the sun, I meditate, I read a book, I fucking, whatever. They've got like coffee enemas, what is it with people and their arseholes? Stick things up my arse in the morning. You are.
Yeah, I know what we know what you brought it up. We all know what you do in your spare time, Andy. That's come out of nowhere. We all know what's on the brain.
I just want to get to know everybody. What do you all do with your arseholes first thing in the morning? Fucking hell. But they'll say that these are all the things that they do. They've got this really elaborate CEO morning routine. And the reality is they get up in the morning, they have a shit, they don't even brush their teeth. They go downstairs, they have a coffee, they fuck around for an hour and a half on social media, and then they start doing a bit of work. And maybe one day a week they do a cold plunge, which absolutely will be recorded and will be posted onto social media for that social proof that they are who they say they are. And it's a load of shit. And the thing is that if I reviewed any of your pages, I would be able to give you the dates and the time when your business was performing well and when it was doing shit, because I would know with the tonality of the content that you produce. Because a lot of you will fall into the pattern of producing the content that you need to see. When you're feeling sad and you're feeling a little bit low and you're a bit insecure and everything's going a bit shit, you become a soft coach. Telling people that, it's all right if you have a week off and, you can't be, you're not a robot, you can't be on it all the time. And then as soon as you get a couple of sign-ups and you get your shit together a bit and you don't feel as fat, all of a sudden you're back on fucking do the things, all of the time. And it's like this. But think about the way that plays out to the person that's being exposed to your content. 1 minute, they're being told, fucking stop being a pussy, do the thing every day, even when you don't feel like it, just get consistent and you'll get the results. And then a week later, it's the opposite. 2 weeks later, it's the opposite. And then it flips back. Like, who's going to be attracted to your content? Because in the week when you're being hardcore, people that like that mentality and think that's the kind of energy that I need, they're attracted to you. And then when you flip, you turn all of those off. and you start attracting all the soft people who want you to hold the hand and tell them that everything's going to be okay. Give them a little kiss on the forehead when they make a mistake. And then a week later, you flip back to being David Goggins and you turn all of those people off. So you never get anybody anywhere near the finish line. You're just edging your entire audience all the time.
I think it was a few weeks ago. It's funny actually. We talked about coaches, how they never actually see. I posted this on content the other day. They never see anything through. Like they're always starting a brand new training program every 4 weeks. I've noticed it in coaches all the time. I can't remember a time I saw a coach stick to a 16-week training block and post about it.
Yeah.
They're always doing, I fell off the wagon this weekend, so I'm back on it again on Monday. New training plan, new motivation. Like you said, and they wonder why they get people that are always, it's all right, I'll start again on Monday. Like, it's interesting because a lot of the stuff we do around the niche stuff, we always start with people and go for the niche document. It's always, they want to lose fat. They overeat the weekends. And me and Mike sit there. And again, you guys will be able to test to this, how annoying it is. We go, yeah, but why? Why have they done that? Why have they done that? Why have they done that? How does it make them feel? And we always go into like, what's the emotion behind that? And when we talk a lot about content, it's like, yeah, but what emotion are they feeling? What specifically are they feeling? What do they currently do? What's the thought and the feeling associated with that? It's never like we always say with a lot of people, it's never about losing weight. It's like we've had the marathon recently, right? It's never about running the marathon. It's not to say you've run a marathon. It's because of a charity. It's because it's how it's affected you. Because you wanted to be someone that can say they've run a marathon. Why do people post their Strava stuff on Instagram? So they look like someone who's healthy. Why do people wear Whoop bands? Because it looks like they take care of their health and fitness. Why is it a big band on their wrist and not like an Oura ring? Or it's more obvious when it's a Whoop band. I'm again, like I see it all the time, and I'm like, but you're overweight, you're wearing a Whoop band. Just stop eating food, mate. Like, but it's how people want to be seen by other people, and I think that again, even within niche documents, like we talk to this to coaches all the time. But why does someone want to do that? Why do they want to be seen to be doing that? Why do they want to be seen to be doing these things? And we always go, why? A bit like you, probably quite annoying to a lot of our coaches. Why? Why do they do that? Why did they do that? Why do they feel like that? And the more conversations you have with your clients about these things, the more you can answer that question. And then in content, they're like, it's like you're talking to me. Yeah, I know, because I am talking to you, because I know what you're thinking, I know what you're feeling, because I've had enough clients and I've asked them enough questions. And like, I ask all my coaches on the questionnaire when they first sign up, the last question I ask them is like, what drives you to take this business forward? Like, what's the real reason we're here? What's the real reason we're doing this? Every single one. It's never about more clients or anything. It's like family, like build a future, I'm like, right, that's why we're here then, isn't it? Yeah. And then it's easier for me to go, right, stop posting that stupid fucking content because you've told me you want to build a future and build more freedom, and all you're doing right now is trying to do that just to get likes on a post. That's not what you've written down on your questionnaire, what you really want. And I encourage all coaches to ask clients this when they sign up. Again, in onboarding, we go over that questionnaires a lot. No coaches that I see when I first get the questionnaire ask those questions of like, what we're really here for? What would losing that weight mean for you? What was it allow you to do in the future? Like you just said, all those questions. Everyone just focuses so much on I'll lose a kilo a week. Okay, for what? Like to do what? Like you just said, I don't think many coaches are asking these questions. And at our event, Paul Standell did a really good talk, and I know a lot of my guys and girls have taken it on board, is that they're going to do a full onboarding call with clients when they first sign up. Again, to make sure that they fully understand those things that they're asking them to do, but also to go deep into this and go like, okay, so why do you want to do this? Like, what's the real thing that you want out of all this that we're going to do? Like you just said there, and he was talking about making the call quite long so that you get to the root of all these problems. And in a world where at the moment we talk about AI a lot, we talk about coaches cutting corners all the time. No other coaches, by the way, are doing anything here that Andy's telling you guys to do. None of them. Not a single coach out there. Every single one of them is trying to find a hack, the shortcut to give their calories without even speaking to the client. Yeah. And we're saying, no, get to know them like on a deeper level, speak to them on a deep level. You get better retention, you get better social proof, more referrals, more all that. It's just, it really all links together to everything that me and Mike would say and talk about in terms of, again, knowing your audience, knowing what you believe, knowing what they want, knowing what you stand for, all those things. It all links back to everything you've just mentioned. So it's just another reminder to everyone that it's not as complex as you think. It's just hard work to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, but you can make it a lot easier on yourself. Like the psychology of coaching program that I've created specifically for this is because I if I wanted to, with how long I've been coaching and looking after coaches and things, I could have done another version of what Dan and Mike do. But there's absolutely no point in doing that because Dan and Mike have got that locked down. Like, they're amazing at what they do. There's no point in me doing that. So I've done the thing that I'm amazing at. And the way that the program works is it starts, and the entire first month of it is dedicated to you, the coach, your identity. Because if you don't fully know and understand yourself, who you are, where who you are comes from, and make informed decisions on what is genuinely most important to you, you won't come close to being the best coach that you could be. And if you can't be the best coach that you could be, you're not going to get the business that you want. That is, I've seen that time and time and time and time again. Because even just knowing what questions to ask can make the world of difference to the outcome for your clients. And to really illustrate the point for this, I'm going to use an example from one of my clients who was the head of he still is, he's the CEO of a dentistry firm, does about 38 million a year in revenue, right? His head of creative wasn't performing the way that she should, and she gets paid £95,000 a year. And he was just like, she's not producing the way that she should. He was like, what I'm thinking about doing, I'm just going to fire her, go to the recruitment firm, get a stand-in in place until I can find another head of creative, but I'm going to get one in who's about 120, 130,000 a year, because at that much of a jump, their work, their standards, etc. will be higher. I was like, right, okay. I was like, well, before you do that, I was like, call her into a meeting. I said, and just ask her 3 questions for me and come back to me with the answer. He was like, right, okay. I said, ask her, does she understand exactly what you're asking her to do? Does she understand exactly how to do it? And does she have everything that she needs to be able to do it? I said, ask her those 3 questions and come back to me with the answers. We ended the call. About an hour later, he messages me, yes, no. So she understood exactly what he wanted her to do. She understood how to do it, but she didn't have everything that she needed to be able to do it. And I just said, right, okay, give her what she needs. Regardless of what it is, give her what she needs. And he did. And then we reviewed in 4 weeks. And I was like, how's she getting on? He was like, mate, the fucking quality of the work is unbelievable. You've saved me hundreds of thousands of pounds. And I was just like, yeah, because you now know to ask the right questions. And the thing is that she didn't have the psychological safety with him as her employer to go to him and go, there's certain things that I absolutely desperately need to be able to do the job that you pay me to do properly, but I'm that scared of you that I don't want to ask. And if he had ended up firing her, the situation she ended up in was his fault, not hers. And that is why clear communication, being direct, is so important. When I first start with someone, I often say to them, when people say setting expectations, they're always like, you need to be committed, you need to be willing to go through the difficult parts, and fucking pointless. When I start with someone, I say to them, one thing that I need you to understand is that I respect you as an adult, but I need you to give me the acknowledgement and the okay to make it uncomfortable if it needs to be. There will be times when I will ask you questions that you won't want to answer. There will be times when I say things to you that makes you think he's a fucking prick. I was like, but you need to understand there will never be a single thing that I ever say to you from this point on that isn't said with your best intentions at heart. And the end result that you come to me for being where we finish. Do you understand? Yes. And that has overcome more issues and points of contention with clients over the years than anything else. Because if I've ever said something and they'd be like, oh, that's a bit harsh. Well, am I wrong? Well, no, but it's a bit mean. I was like, am I wrong? No. Right. So all the other shit's irrelevant. That's just how you feel about it. I'm just giving you the truth. You do with it what you want. You can either feel sad about it, or you can just take it on the chin and just make the changes. What are you going to do? Are you going to sulk about it for the next week and then make the changes? Or are you just going to get over it now and make the changes? Yeah, I'm just going to fucking get over it, make the changes. Right, good. Like, that is direct communication. That is how you expedite things. Instead of it taking 3 months to get someone somewhere, you can get them there in a couple of weeks. It's like when Dan was saying, was it Paul who was talking about having like onboarding calls with everybody? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What I would advise is use that call as an audit. So I teach like a client diagnostic, because I don't believe that you should try to coach everybody. I think it's a stupid way to try and run a coaching business. Because if you have just an open book policy, anybody, any age, any gender, any mentality type, any psychological profile, you're welcome. You've got absolutely zero exclusivity to your service, which is a negative. But the other side of it is every call that you get on when you have no standards for your service is just you trying to get that person into your service. Whereas for me, if you jumped on a call with me because you wanted to become one of my clients, you're going to meet resistance because I'm like, no, hang on, prove that you deserve to be in it. You need to meet my criteria to become one of my clients. I'm not going to try and mold myself into the coach that I think you need me to be. And when you do that, those calls, they're a lot shorter. Because I've had many calls like that. That's how Dan made me feel. That's just because you're not white, mate. That's the only reason. But when you approach
An Arsenal fan, more importantly.
You
That's what
are.
it was. He's an Arsenal fan. Nothing to do with that.
Oh, fucking even worse. But that's it.
Yeah.
When you've got really specific standards for your business, for your service, it's happened with me many, many, many times. I've had a conversation in DMs with them. They've wanted to jump on a call. I end up having a call with them and I stop the call after 10, 15 minutes and I say, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop the call here. This isn't going to work. I'm not going to work with you. And like the level of shock that they experience, as if they're like, I didn't even realise that this was an option. I thought this was me deciding whether I wanted you to be my coach. It's just like, no, the first thing that happens is I decide whether I want you to be my client. And then if you pass that, then we get to the next bit. Which, why would you not want me to be a coach? I'm an absolute delight. But that's it. You need really specific standards. And again, to be able to hold those standards, you've got to be completely certain of who you are as a person and as a coach, because those are two different profiles, but they've got to be aligned. Because if they're not, you're just going to struggle. Any inconsistency in revenue and things like that, any kind of need of external validation, if you post something and it does well on views, on likes and things like that, you're like, yeah, fucking brilliant, I feel great today. But then you post something else a day later and that doesn't do well on likes and views, and then you feel a bit shit and you're a bit uncertain about yourself. You are vulnerable because you are dependent on external validation. You need other people to give you signals that you are a good coach, you are a worthwhile person. If you can internally validate, all of that stops. And you will be consistent, whether you post something and it bombs, or whether you post something and it goes viral, it won't make a scrap of difference to you. Should we do questions, Dan?
Does anybody have a question for Andrew based on what he's talked about? Not based on what he's talked about? Anything at all? I'm going to stop recording. That's what I'm going to do.
Recording stopped.
So that we can have open dialogue for anyone who wishes to ask a question. I'm sure they could always find you on Instagram if they do have a private question they don't want to ask, because that could happen as well, knowing these lot.
They can.
What is have you changed your Instagram handle?
It's just my name now.
Yeah, I thought you had.
Can I ask a question, please?
No, not you, Josh. Anyone else can.
All right, fair enough.
Wait, hang on. Just before we get to Josh's question, Tristan's saying nice things about me, so I think we should give that the limelight for a second. He said, in terms of relevance to me, this is the most informative and impactful call I've attended. I mean, he says it's only the second, but that will be true in perpetuity. He could attend 100 and that won't change. So,
yeah, I think good job we stopped the recording. That's what I'm going to say. Go on, Josh.
I think he actually doesn't say it's his second. He said second to Mike and Dan's group call. So close enough, Andy.
So he unmuted just for that. He couldn't wait to unmute that. He couldn't wait. Is there nothing on call? I couldn't wait, guy.
you know what,
Sorry,
you know what
Josh,
that
you cut
is?
me off when you tried
That's
to talk.
external validation, that, Mike.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Go on, Josh.
Am I right in thinking a lot of your coaching, well, probably a lot of it is done over calls, so you can ask questions before giving advice? Is that right? Do you do a lot of...
So my one-on-one service isn't available anymore. I closed my one-on-one service for intake at the back end of last year. But it was a call fortnightly and WhatsApp. But I'm really big on the daily communication with my clients, voice notes, written. I prefer voice notes as well, because I can get way more from someone if I can hear the tone of voice, the pace that they're speaking at, the way they're breathing, things like that. But that was because it just made it so much easier to be able to understand what they were saying that they weren't saying.
Yeah.
Because the pace that someone speaks at, the intonations that on certain words and things like that is what tells me what someone's issue is, what they actually they need to focus on. Is Charlie in the call? The big knight has shown up, having
Never
completed.
never usually turns up to these, so
Well, it's because I'm here.
convenient. Yeah,
So-
no.
says
But you
everything.
paid him. You paid him to turn up, so you got the more people in the call. Yeah, and we all know.
We don't talk about that. But look, everybody, look at the nice thing that Charlie said. Having completed Andy's course, it's very valuable and would recommend to all. Within the first 4 weeks, it had already returned the investment I made. Only downside is you've got to deal with Andy every week.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that last comment was necessary per se, but
It's more balanced though, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it's more balanced review.
now Charlie did the coach tier, so he actually got to speak to me on what would have been a group call. Because like the way that works is each week we would have a group call for anybody that joined it, where I go over the content that you're learning in that week. So if you've got questions or struggling with anything, you get direct feedback just to expedite the process.
I feel like when I started, I feel like when I started coaching, I wasn't good at calling clients out, and I'm getting better, and thus getting better results as time has gone on. Any advice to continue to make this shift without it being a huge shock for clients? I just want to add my tuppence before you go, Andy. The other thing I will say is that I think it's really important that, because I get this sometimes from me and Mike, where we post our content a certain way, and then people sign up with us, and they just turn into like trying to be like mini Dan and Mike. So I'm like, no. Like, we do it like this because we are like this. This is like you say, if you see us at an event, we're like this, right? If you're someone who wants to, again, I only say this because you said it, calling out clients, right? There's ways you can do that by asking questions. It doesn't have to be a direct, you're lying to me, like what's going on. It can be like, so why do you think this has happened? What's happening to get to this point? Just only because you say that about huge shock, it doesn't need to be a huge shock for it to land with people. Like Andy said, with some of his clients, he might be a little bit more firm, right? I just wanted to make that point just because I think it's important to note, just because I'm sure it's on a spectrum to some degree, but there's some clients I work with that I can't imagine them being very upfront, almost in your face, maybe in the same way that me and Mike might come across in content, but it would still do the job of being effective and make someone stop in their tracks and think differently because of the way they've asked the question, rather than just going, you're a fucking liar, what's going on? Like, don't just think that it's like needs to be like that, if that makes sense. I feel like that's stating the obvious, but I feel like I have to say it in case people are like, oh, I'm all of a sudden just going to start having a go at people, just because that might be the way me and Mike are perceived to do it in content, if that makes sense. Because I've seen it before with people.
Yeah.
Just try and turn into us, and it's like, quite work.
Yeah, because again, but anybody that has done that, you've kind of, you've tried to take a bit of Mike and a bit of Dan and put it into your own content. That's because you are unsure of who you are as a person and as a coach. So because you can't show up as yourself because you don't know who you are, you have to become a shitty bastardized version of other people, and it's one of the worst things that you could do. But as far as challenging a client, the challenge is it's the questions that you ask. It should be very, very rare incidents where you have to say to a client, you're lying to me, and I know you are. Now, I've done that with clients before, as and when it's actually needed. But if you tell someone what the problem is, if you tell someone what they need to do, if you tell someone why they've made a mistake, they're not going to learn from it. They'll listen and they'll understand it, but they won't learn. If you ask them the questions that leads them down the path to the same eventuality, they will learn from that. So instead of calling them out, because to call somebody out, it tends to put a lot of people in kind of a belittled situation where they feel like a child who's being shouted at by a parent. And again, in the interest of psychological safety, you want to ensure that you do it in a manner that makes them understand the value and the purpose of being challenged by you as their coach. So it's not just you going, oh, you're just shit and you're lazy and you clearly don't want to do it. That isn't helping anybody. So if a client has repeated a behavior a couple of times, I would introduce that by saying, right, okay, so this has happened a couple of times now. It happened at this point, it's happened at this point, it's happened at this point, and this is the fourth incidence. So we need to find out what it is that's going on in your life at some point that acts as the catalyst for this happening. So away from the gym, away from your plate, what's going on in your life or what's been happening over the last week that has caused more stress that might have led to this happening. And you'd be surprised how quickly they go, this thing's happened, and they give you all the details. You go, right, okay, is it the same thing that's happened each time? Be a yes or a no. If it's a yes, great, because it makes it a little bit easy to deal with. But then you just say, and with respect to that, at what point did you want to tell me about it? And how long did you wait to? I wanted to tell you at the start when it first happened, but I didn't know how to. I didn't feel like I could. I wasn't sure whether I should. I didn't know whether you'd care. Whatever they say. You need to make the point at that point. As soon as something happens that is a stressor, that is going to stress you out, it's going to affect your sleep, it's going to affect your timing of your day, your appetite, etc., let me know. Because the sooner I know, the sooner I can help. I can only coach the things that I know about, and if I don't know about it, I can't help. And it's better for me to find out in the moment whilst it's actually happening than, after the fact and a check-in like this. And then they'll be like, right, okay. And at that point, if they go, sorry for not telling you, you say, you don't need to apologise. You've not done anything wrong in that respect. Just make the commitment now. In the future, when this happens again or something like it, will you tell me? Yes. Why? And that question, why, is really important. It's one of my favourite questions, and you've got to ask it in isolation. Why, ? And nothing else. Because then that gives them the opportunity to then reiterate everything that you said to them. So that shows they've listened, they've understood, they know why they have done it and what they need to do next time. That is the best way to stop repeating patterns from happening. And you can apply a similar version of that to any different circumstance that comes up. Because it's like any coach you ever see, or you might have done it yourself. You might have said things like, oh, they were just a shit client, after the fact when they've left. It's just a shit client. They just didn't want it enough. They were just lazy. They were never really committed right from the start. There will be certain instances and certain clients when that is true. Sometimes it will be because you've let somebody into your service who you absolutely shouldn't have. A lot of the time, it's going to be because the disparity between you as a coach and you on social media is a light year apart. And that is a problem that only you can fix. But most of the time, it's not that they are lazy and it's not that they don't care. It's that you haven't done your due diligence to find out what the real problem is and what the real goal is that they're working towards. Because like I just said, I can only coach the things that I know about. That's the same for everybody in this room. So if you're trying to coach somebody to a goal that isn't the real goal, because your client doesn't understand what the real goal is, it's your job as the experienced coach to help them understand that. Because I've done it with people and they've gone, oh my God, I had no idea that was even a problem. And all of a sudden, their whole demeanour, their attitude towards every step of the process is completely different. I've had people come to me, they've been to psychologists, they've been to psychiatrists, they've been to therapists, they've been to counsellors, they've been to everybody under the sun, fucking hypnotherapists to try and solve the problems that they've got. I've had addicts, whether it's gambling, whether it's drugs, whether it's drink, whether it's sex. I've had, you name it, I've dealt with it within my service. I don't just look after coaches. I've had people come to me who've been addicted to drugs for years and years and years, and they've done everything that they thought that they could do. And within 3 months, they've been clean. So if any of you are addicted to drugs, I'm your guy.
Right, let's wrap up because we've Janai's got a question, but you might have to message Andy about it. But I also think it's also just a case of you do to keep asking more questions, like Andy referred to there with one of the people that he spoke to. Is just sit there and go, yeah, but why, and then eventually you kind of get to the point of why someone wants that amazing physique a little more. But anyway, thanks for coming, guys. Like I say, we got to go, and go check out Andy's stuff. Go give him a follow on Instagram. Ask him any questions. He's a delightful person to speak to, and he's funny on his stories. So go watch him.
Very true.
And we'll speak to you in a bit. Cheers, Andy. See you later, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.